everyone to learn the third day. Father, we ask that you get the pastor, we ask that you get the songs, but the testimonies today, Lord God, Father. If our preaching at the 11 o'clock hour, if the teaching this morning, Lord God, give all that's said done, Father. Bless each and every one that got to go. Give a special blessing to each and every one that's not able to be here this morning, God. We love you, we praise you, Father, and ask all things. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Well, Dave, are you teaching this morning?
Yeah.
Okay. Wanted to check. Anyway, I'm looking forward. We're going to finish up. We're going to start to finish up the book of Ephesians. I very seriously doubt we'll get through the entire chapter 6 this evening or this morning, but I'm looking forward to hearing Dave. So come on up, Dave, and
I want to apologize for being late this morning. I told Bobby I was going to blame it on him. And I did have to wait on Bobby this morning while he got in the car. So, you know, that sort of threw us off. But, got me light picture.
How could you, Bobby? That was just awful.
Yeah. If he just had the window over there, I could dug two little while he drove by.
better than 3 o'clock. Unless it's 3 o'clock the Lord's
Is that a little better?
There we go.
Okay, can you hear me now, Pete? You think so? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, yeah, Keith can hear me now. But anyway, so I'm blaming Bobby for his being late this morning. And I apologize. I like being early. I had a rough morning. It's rough to get going. I don't know what's happening in my life. But it's good to be here this morning. We're in Ephesians. We're starting in chapter 6 today. We finished up chapter 5 with the starting in the family, the cast of the family, the husband and the wife, and the responsibilities of the wife to the husband. And of course, we're talking about a Christian family. We're not talking about the family, a lost family, where the husband really don't think he's got any responsibility to the wife, or the wife has no responsibility. So we're not talking about the worldly family. We're talking about a Christian family when we talk about this. The obedience to each other and what each other has for each other. We finished up chapter 5 with that, and I'm ready to chapter 6, and we're going to start talking about the children this morning. I read, and you know, we got some Psalms to look at and a few things, and there's some things that really hit me in the Psalms that I might ask some issues with in my heart, but it comes from the Bible. It's God's word that's given through the Psalms and the way these words are said. And maybe I'm interpreting the meaning different from what they are, but it can sound pretty harsh when it comes to treating our children. But we want our children to walk in the right way. And you know, I read about the upbringing of children, and it starts in the home. It starts at children at birth. And it talks about the growth of children and how we should direct them as husbands and wives and also. But I'm going to open up. And it says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Is it right because it's according to the will of God? It's to be under authority. each and every one of us is under authority from one way or another, starting with God, working our way down. Our employers, our husbands, our wives, our children are under authority of the family. God has structured the family, the husband, the wife, the children, the way He structured the government in heaven. It's structured in that way, and it starts with obedience. If we can't be obedient, we can't serve God, and we've got to learn obedience. I read a lot about the army and the service of how people come into the army and they weren't obedient. They couldn't be used in the army because they were no good. They couldn't conform to the rules, the regulations. And we need to raise our children in the same way in a Christian home. Me, I was stupid. I wasn't serving God. My wife wasn't serving God. I was sending my kids to church on a Sunday morning like most families do. I was expecting my kids to get the upbringing of a Christian from what they were trying to teach them in church in the morning time. And I found out that was a total failure. Because they were getting 7 days of us and 1 hour of them. They weren't getting the proper training. They were being told, or they were being trained, or they were being guided in an hour in what they were given, but they couldn't learn. It didn't hold, because everything we was. We're to live and walk, and we're to talk as Christians, and we're to show our Christian life in front of our kids at home, in the way we work, in the way we perform our duties, and the things that we do. So, it says, honor thy mother and thy father, which is the first commandment with promise. Of course, we have a commandment to honor thy mother and thy father. I think about how I treated my mother and my father. I never hit them. I never cussed them. I never smacked them. I knew better to be disobedient to my father. He was like a heavy weight that would drop on you really fast and crush you. But I love my father, and my mother left the discipline up to him. And usually in the home life, the discipline is put up to the man. Now, there are some families where the woman does the discipline. And there's families where both of them take it. My mother not taking the name. She lived in my father. I remember one time that I messed up. My mom said, I'm going to tell you, Dad. I stopped and sat down. 3 hours later, Dad comes through the door. We had supper. And he said, after we get finished with supper, I'm going to deal with you. And I knew how he was going to deal. So I sat at that supper table. And I sat at that supper table. And I sat at that supper table. Everybody done got up, and I sat at the supper table. Because of the discipline that I knew was coming. But I was wrong. I deserved what I got. But he handled the discipline. It's supposed to be in the family does.
I was raised by a single mom. My dad died when I was 4, so my entire time growing up was only mom. And she was the disciplinarian, but she was a lot less consistent. It was mostly, I got spanked when I made her angry. And usually I did wrong to make her angry. So 99.9% of the time I deserved what I got. But I mean, it wasn't like, some people would say, just sit down, son, we're going to talk about what you did wrong and how you can not do this in the future. Her, it was just very emotional. I often wondered how things would have been different if Dad would have been in the house. You know, whether he would temper some of the inconsistencies or what.
Well, my dad wasn't inconsistent. If you looked at you and told you one day with you, you're finished. But he didn't do it in anger, and that's what we have to talk about as parents. Parents discipline and anger. And we got to be careful with that, because we're prone to that. And my dad never did it in anger unless I made it really bad. Once I set the woods on fire, burned down 20 acres, go to a storm and do it. But he finally got it put out. He was a little angry when he came and busted my butt. He didn't have time to deal with me beforehand because he had to go put the fire out. But you understand what I'm saying? There was a little anger there.
But, I mean, there's one time when Laura was little that she decided that she was going to go visit her neighbors. And she was probably 6 or 7. She left the house without telling us where she was going to go. Went down to the neighbor's house. Was sitting down at the neighbor's house having dinner with them. And we were looking for her, couldn't find her. I was searching everywhere, and I had that sinking feeling in my stomach, like, oh great, she's been kidnapped. She's probably dead in a ditch somewhere. You know, I was getting panicked. We were ready to call the cops. And so when we checked with Rebecca's buddy Elizabeth, that's her world was. And so I did not discipline her calmly and rationally, because I was upset.
Well, it was excitement of the moment, which was happy to see her. She probably hugged her before you said anything and told her that you loved her.
Look, my kids always hated this, so whenever I would discipline them, after I spanked them, I'd give them a hug and told them I love them. And with Laura and with Benny both, they get really upset after they get disciplined, and they don't want to have anything to do with you. So I guess me giving them a hug was kind of like rubbing salt on them. I didn't mean it to be. I was just saying, your spanking became because you had to get it, not because I wanted to hurt you.
Well, I was far by any means a perfect husband and a perfect father to my kids, but most of the time, I would put my kids, tell them beforehand why they're getting disciplined. And I did put them across my knees and discipline properly, because I hit them with a spot where they needed to be hidden. And they knew beforehand. I try not to discipline in anger because I know I could get really carried away. Not saying there wasn't times that I didn't. But we'll get to that. I want to finish up here. I'm going to Deuteronomy, and of course, we go to Exodus chapter 20, and it's amazing because we still got the 10 commandments there. And Deuteronomy 5, verse 16, it says, honor thy mother and thy father, or honor thy father and thy mother, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. So the Lord God has commanded children to honor their mother and father. And that's coming into an older age where a child can understand the commandments, understand what God's saying, that they are to honor their mother and father. That the days may be prolonged, and that it may go well with thee in the land which thy Lord thy God giveth thee. This is the first commandment with promise. This is the only commandment that has a promise of something that's going to happen. The others has a promise of sin. That's what's going to happen due to sin. But this has a promise of good. God will take care of you. I look back and I thought about this when I was reading this, and I never thought of this in my life. But I treated my mother well. I never disrespected my mother. I got mad. I might have walked out of the house a few times mad. I didn't cuss her. I didn't call her names. I didn't smack her. I didn't dishonor her. I never dishonored my father. And God's extended my life. He really has. And I'm a witness to that. I should have been dead years ago. I had the surgery. It's been over 16 years now. That tells me that it'll last for more than 10 years. So God's been good to me. And I had to look back and think, honoring my mother and father, did that help the extension of my life? Of course it did. Because God's words are true. And he said it, and I think he's true in what he says. But I feel good about that.
And to be honest, I've seen time and time again that the contrary of that. When children disrespect their parents and have no respect for their parents, they won't have no respect for anyone else.
No, they don't have respect. They don't care about anybody else. They care only about themselves.
And they usually live very short lives. Disobedience to parents is the last and lowest form of lawlessness to occur on this earth. Disobedience to parents. Look at how kids react to kids. How kids react to parents. You look in our class, in our class, you look how Aiden reacts in class, and you can imagine how he reacts to the things he does at home. The disobedience of kids nowadays is getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. They think they're boss and in charge. They run over parents. They do whatever they want to do. Timothy 3:1-2. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boastful, pride, blasphemers, disobedience to parents, unthankful, unholy. Now look what that word is, disobedience to parents. Look where they fall at. For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedience to parents, unthankful, and unholy.
That falls in with the end times. We can watch it. We're watching it in our lifetime. Watching children turn, children killing their parents. The things that's going on in this world is unbelievable anymore. Now, you know, a child has got a natural rebellion in him. A male, female, I guess they got natural rebellion. Female's rebellion when he comes of age. He gets tired of living at home. He starts longing for his own life. He wants to get out and make his own step in the world. He wants to get married. He wants to have kids. He wants to have a job. He wants to grow as a man. Well, boys anymore stay boys. I know some personally. I've got some personally I tend to. They're just little boys in men's bodies. They don't even know how to handle life. But a true child that's raised properly under the Lord and raised properly should have that ambition not to stick with their mother and father. The Bible tells us that. They're the leave mother and father and to cleave to their wives. They should have a rebellion. 16 and 17, they think they know more and ready to go out in the world and tackle the world and move on. And that's a natural rebellion that a child should have. But a disobedience is a whole different thing.
Well, all children will push against the parents. And when I see a disobedient parent, a disobedient child, the first thing I assume is there's a problem with parents not pushing back.
You know, our laws is in structure, and I'm going to mention this. Our laws is structured where you can't punish your kids. You can't whip your kids. You can't
Correct.
properly correct. This is the word I kept looking for. I couldn't catch it. You can't properly correct your children in your own house. I'll tell you what, my dad corrected me in the house, the parking lot, walking down the street. I got corrected. But you know, that was 50, 55 years ago, 60 years ago. It's changed that far. Now they want to put you in jail. I've heard kids say, and I've heard them tell, you touch me and see what I'll call the law on you in a heartbeat.
Laura did that to me once. I handed her the phone. I said, it's going to take at least 15 minutes to get here. Think what I'm going to do to you in the meantime. If I'm going to go to jail, I'm going to deserve it.
But that's kids. Well, I want you to do that. I'm calling the law, so you go ahead. You start hitting me. As soon as you lay your hand on me, I'm going to lay down and scream and cry, and you're going to be in jail. It's that attitude. How do you correct kids under that conditions? You better be prepared to go to jail nowadays. You know, they put people in jail for nothing anymore. I think about that officer in the military that was a Marine, that was a colonel like that talked about how bad that job went over in Afghanistan. They put him in jail, shut him up.
He resigned.
Well,
He resigned, and they said, we're not taking your resignation, then threw him in jail under Article 32.
But they'll put you in jail for anything anymore. And they love to put people in jail, especially a Christian, put you
But
in
they
jail for
don't,
being
they'll put people in jail for stupid stuff, but they won't put people in jail for serious stuff. You murder somebody, they'll let you out. You know, you rob, they'll let you out. You know, you offend somebody in power, they'll throw you. I mean,
Yeah, talk against the state and see what happens to you.
January 6 rioters who did half of what the BLM people did. I mean, not even that. I mean, should they be in jail? Should they be arrested? Yeah. I mean, you break in and you break the law like that, something should happen to you. But the thing is, they're still in jail. They won't even let them post bond.
Yeah, they call it insurrection.
It's not.
Of course, the Democrats want to put half of the Republicans in jail anyway. Half the nation wants to put the other half in jail. Ain't that amazing? I mean, but they got no sense. But you start talking against the state, you see what they'll be if you're doing a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But it's a shame.
But
it's a shame that you can't correct your children. Now, there's a way to correct them. We're talking about that, to correct them properly, to spank them, to let them know why they're being spanked, to be under control when you spank them, to do it properly. Just to go in and beat one up, give him a black eye and blood and nose, break his leg and arm, and throw him over the, that's not a proper correction. That's
there's a huge difference between abuse and correction.
there is.
Huge difference. And the Bible does not call for us to love our children, to care for our children, and to correct our children out of love. And nothing in here would indicate any kind of abuse whatsoever. But the problem we have in our society is that any kind of authority, any authority whatsoever is being rebelled against.
Of course.
And the first authority anyone knows is the authority of the home.
Well, that's where authority starts at. It starts with birth. Now, I'm not saying that with a kid, but as they grow, you teach them discipline, you teach them right from wrong, you teach them good from bad. You start teaching them. A lot of parents don't take time to do that. A lot of parents don't talk to their children. I think of families, think of the families that's completely threw their Bibles away and walked away from God, and think about where it leads their children. The same place I left mine in the hands of somebody else for an hour a week. If they went an hour a week. If I got up and sinned. That was where they were getting their and I loved them. I told them I loved them. I'd take them out to eat if they got mad at me. I'd go buy them something if I could. But that wasn't love. Like everybody else. What happened in school? Well, that teacher don't like me. I'm not that teacher. What's that teacher picking on my kid for? That's not love. But you know how that goes on. So we should be careful with that. And the disobedience of the child is going to carry on into the darker days as we go. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And parents is going to suffer and pay the price. I've known families that their son beats them up. Families, I haven't known any that's got killed, but there's kids, you see them. Mendez brothers, for instance, and this just goes down the line over time that the kids that's killed their parents. They have no respect for their parents. They have no care. So, let's go to verse 4. And you fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admiration of the Lord. Bring them up in nurture and admiration. You know what we're talking about? If you just vent, if you're mad and you vent and you whip your child, it comes to the point he says, what's the use anymore? Or she says, what's the use? I've got whippers before, and I said, Dad, but I really didn't do it. You did other things that you didn't get whipped for, so this makes up for it. Well, what's the use then? If I'm just going to get beat because you feel like beating me up, it doesn't mean nothing no more. If I'm not going to be corrected for the things that I did, if I'm not going to be told and given guidance for the things that I did, what's the use? You're just bitter. You get mad, you go down. My dad liked to drink. Every now and then when he get drunk, well, I won't get square for everybody. That's life. Or that was life. But we can't do that. We need to be properly when we're correcting our kids. Some of this lesson I wish I would have 50 years ago. But unfortunately, I walked lost. But I can look back and see the things I did. And we can talk about the good things that we did when we walked lost. But the thing about it is, we were still lost. It doesn't matter the good things that we did. We were disobedient to God. We still wasn't raising our kids properly. I might have took them to the side every now and then and explained to them why I was going to beat their dad. And I might have not. But that gives them an attitude. It doesn't matter. And the thing about kids that go on and on and on, I've seen kids get abused and still love their mother because that's what they've got. That's their mother. And mothers can see the love that their child has to give, and yet they'll beat them and abuse them every time. And they can't see that love. It's a shame.
The interesting thing is in the culture that this was written in, there was no consideration whatsoever for the child. The parent could do whatever they wanted to the child, and no one would even blame. And the idea of worrying about whether your kid was mad at you or not was, we as parents need be attentive to the responses of our kids. You know what I mean? Benny likes to wrestle with me. The problem is every time he wrestles with me, he winds up getting angry because he tries to get me pinned or whatever, and he's not going to pin me. And so then he gets mad, and then it changes from something playful to something that, you know, I'm like, okay, you need to calm down. You know what I mean? So we have to know our children and not do things that would provoke them, that would cause them to get angry for no reason. You know what I mean? So I am trying to avoid those situations now because I realize the way that both of us are bent, neither one of us are going to give in. He's going to get short end of the stick until one of these days I'm too old and I'll get short end of the stick. But the thing is we need to be attentive to our kids and understand our kids and know our kids. And we bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. So the proper way that you raise kids is in the church house with the Bible all the way around their life. And I think that's saved us 1,000 times because the things I would say to Laura and the things I've said to Benny, oh, that's just Dad, I don't know what to talk. I remember one time, it was been years and years ago, I was talking to Laura, and she just ignored me. She came to me one day and says, you know, Dad, Pastor Kenny said the exact same thing that you said to me. I guess that's the way I need to do it. I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? Because what I said didn't matter, but because we were raising her in the fear and admonition of the Lord, and there were other people who were godly, who were speaking into her life, they were able to backstop some of the things that we said. If that makes sense.
It makes sense.
When Rebecca was pregnant with Laura, we weren't in church, and her dad looked at me. Rebecca's dad looked at me, and he says, you know, you need to raise that baby in church. That's before we knew we were having a little girl. And they cut me to the heart because they knew he was right. And that's the fear and admonition of the Lord.
And it does sometimes the truth hurts. A lot of times the truth hurts. When you try to present the truth, sometimes we get too ambiguous when we tell people the truth. We need to spread it just a little bit at a time. But people don't want to hear it. Definition of nurture and nurture is discipline. And if the admonition of the Lord is instruction, we're to raise them with discipline and instruction. They're to be instructed. We're to be teachers. We're to be teachers in the way we walk, in the way we talk, the way we act, the things we do, because kids imitate what they see. They're great imitators. I was talking one day, I was sitting at my kitchen table, and I was talking with a friend at the time, and we were sitting there talking. My son, he was sitting over here on the floor. He was 10 feet away, but he was over there playing or doing whatever he was doing. And we were talking about the chiefs in the military, and I probably told you, and I told this man, I said, them chiefs. I said, they are so good they climb trees. We were climbing up down the hillsides over there in Czechoslovakia, over in West Germany, and them things, there was no place we couldn't go. No place. After he left, my son looked at me and said, Dad, he said, could them chiefs really climb trees? You see what I'm saying? The kids imitate what you see, what you do, and who you are. So we got to be careful in our walk. We should walk godly. We should act godly. We should be at home while we are in public, while we are in church, and where we are. We should treat people the same. Our pastor, our workplace, everybody that we come in contact with, we should be godly. We got to be careful with our walk. Be careful of our kids. I'm talking about that maybe 2,000 years ago, times was different for kids, and maybe they weren't. Husbands had gone a lot of times to war. Husbands was dead. Husbands was out just running around doing what men do. And there was probably a lot of older men that were trying to get out and hunt and sport and take care of the family. They probably had to grow up pretty fast. But I think they still had that structure there. I think mothers still loved them, and mothers still try to raise them in the way that the Lord would have them to be raised. I don't think it was just sort of deserved and forgotten about. I don't think it was just so disobedient that they couldn't be cared for. You know, we talk about this, and under the law, this was not a problem. The way you raise your children, but under the New Testament, under the new covenant, it's brought up. So, you know, I look at things and I like to think that things wasn't, I know things were bad, but maybe they wasn't in the shape that we would think that they were destructive or so destructive that homes and families. I think if you probably, and it tells us, I was just reading it, that if a kid was disobedient, they go to the gate, the elders, and tell them about it. The kid was stoned. They were stoned. They were put to death for things that they did. So, we got to be careful.
Most, even in ancient times, children were loved and cared for, and they were raised, they were taught right from wrong. Even the pagans would do those things. And the commandment to honor your parents, that's, while it's in the Ten Commandments, it's kind of part of the natural order of things.
It is part of the natural order. Just like we're to obey our Father in heaven. We're His children. And we're to obey Him. And, you know, one of the things that I brought up is the family life is made in the order of God's government in heaven. The government of the family. The man is the head. He's put there for a reason, to keep confusion and chaos. You know, he keeps everything straight and right and guides and leads. So, you know, we have an order. We have an order in God's government, and there's an order in our family. There's an order in our life. It's an order. We talk about God. God's not a God of confusion. He's a God of order. And from everything He does from the beginning to the end, He gives order to it.
And you notice there's something else implied here too. You're right, exactly right about order, but also authority.
Authority, and that is the authority that's placed above us. And we're going to go into that, start with the next verse.
Well, but it starts here.
It starts here, the authority over children at the time of birth, the authority over each and every one of us. And I think I brought that up at the very beginning. It starts with God and Jesus, man and wife. Everyone's down the line. The authority that's placed above each and every one of us has an authority above us.
All right, I'm going to ask you, it's not a trick question, but
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's come on.
It's a thoughtful question. The honor your mother and your father commandment, does that extend to adulthood? And if so, how?
It extends all the way throughout life to everybody. You should honor the people that you pass on the street. You shouldn't be disrespectful or disobedient to anybody unless they're actually asking you to do something stupid or foolish, something that's against God, something that's going to murder or kill. But you should have respect for everybody. And yes, it does. And we just brought that up. I was talking about children, and it's talking about children here. It says, honor thy mother and thy father, which is the first commandment with promise. They got the first commandment with promise. That it may be well with thee as thou livest long on the earth. Okay, you take a disobedient, disrespectful child, how's he going to act? Disobedient, disrespectful. But if you teach a kid, if you raise a kid in honor and discipline, then he's going to honor people. He's going to have discipline. He's going to have understanding for people. He's going to, he's going to honor them as he honors his mother and father. I never was disrespectful to people until I got married. And then even through God, I'm learning that we're to love people. We're to love people as we love. We're to have love. God is love. And it's taken a while to. I had an incident a couple weeks ago. A guy purposely shot my dog with a BB gun. He was standing on the side of the street. He had a bundle in his arms. And he was clean. Doesn't mean nothing. Over a high avenue. No people up and down, no cars, nobody there, nobody outside. He was just standing there looking down the street on the side. I thought he's waiting for somebody to come down the street to get him. So me and my dog walked out 5, 6 foot away from him. Not even close to him. My dog didn't look at him, didn't bark at him, I didn't even speak to him. Walked around him, we got about from here to Bobby, or click, click, and my dog jumped around. He shot up the baby girl. So I stopped instantly, I turned around, I said, buddy, I said, you just shoot my dog. He wouldn't talk. I said, you shot my dog, and I said, there's no reason. I said, my dog didn't do you no harm, did nothing to do to you. That's all he did. My first thought is, go over and kick his butt. My second thought was, is I've been planning on getting a pistol just for walking because of how bad it is. I'm glad I didn't have one. Because I might have did something I would have regretted. So I turned around and started walking away. And he walks up beside me and he wouldn't speak. I'm not lying. He wouldn't speak. And I stopped and I backed up. And I was ready to confront him at that point. And the police asked me, she said, why didn't you just kick his butt? I said, because I gave my life to God, and that's not what God would have me to do. I felt it in me.
Yeah.
Of wanting to hurt this man. Because he shot my dog for no reason. I had a arousal in me. I told him, you better get away from him. I turned around. I reported to the police station, and I stopped the chief of police, stopped him. He knows who that was. He's just another dopehead, heroin user. Said he acts stupid, he is stupid. He asked me, he said, why didn't you just beat him up? I told him, I said, look, I gave my life to God 12, 14 years ago. This is not what God would have me to do. He's God of love. And I'm to love and forgive this man, even though he shot my dog. That's what I'm to do. But if he shoots my dog again, you might find him dead. But it was the love that I felt for God in my heart. And then I prayed last night, Chris, and I'm thinking, God, thank you because you provide for me. You give me, you protect me, you keep everything right in my life. For a man that lives by the sword, dies by the sword. But what I want to say is the love that God placed in my heart and developed at 66 years old. Now, I told the police I don't need to be out there fighting with these young guys. I'm not scared to be up and down the street. God give me that right. And I'm not going to go out here and I don't need all that. But if he wants to kill someone, you're going to find him dead. Because I know old guys who walk their dog that don't have that attitude. You see what I'm saying? But it's the love of God. And it's the love of God that develops in children as they grow. I had problems. And the biggest thing I had in my problems was when I was in church. Why was it? Because I love God and I want to be in God's house. I love this house of prayer. I love God, I love His Word, I love everything He is. And when I miss, that's what I miss the most in my life. And imagine kids as grades under God's Word, that's what I love. To turn around and walk away and just forget, that's a hard thing to do. So, but anyway, it's a 5 till. We're going to open up a new page and start at 5 next week. I don't want to start at 5 today because 5, 6, 7, 8, they all run together right there. So instead of going any further, is there any questions? Any comments?
Someone